where dreams collide. Sarah's voice, a gentle guide through the realms of time and space. She takes us to a sacred place.
Yes.
What is your realm like?
My realm is pure energy. So I sit at the highest point of creation between the divine masculine and the divine feminine in their purest essence. So while I showed a form to Andrew, my true form is one of just pure energy,
And why
not
do you,
necessarily the representation of a dragon as he has the perception of, whereas I showed him the perception of me.
are you still related in some way to the dragon realm or no?
Yes and no. So I would say that I do not necessarily have much interaction with the dragon realm. They're aware that I exist, but their perception of me is much like a human being's perception of God. So to the majority of the dragon realm, I am what you would perceive as unobtainable, or the perception of being unknowable because of the position and the loftiness that I sit within is outside of the frequency range of most of the Dragon Kingdom.
I
So
see.
they are aware that I exist, but they are, for the most part, unable to communicate or reach me or interact with me.
I see. What about the,
So to give an example, the concept of Shiva, if you see kind of what that is within the human persona or perception, it's an elevated title or position of consciousness. And so it's something that's looked up to or sought after for an understanding of what that represents. And so I would say that I represent that for the Dragon Kingdom.
oh, okay, I see. That makes a lot of sense. Well, for humanity, many people look up to Mary Magdalene as like a divine feminine. Is that even connected? Is she in any her energy even connected to you, or is that just totally something different?
That's something different. So Mary Magdalene has become a representation of the human divine feminine as it expresses itself through humanity and the trials that that entails.
So if you sort of oversee, you have,
I
um,
witness.
I see. Well, what are your thoughts on the rebalancing of the masculine and feminine right now? What advice would you give us?
I would say that it's been a long time coming, and there's still a long way to go. So as the scales rebalance, you have an overflow of that energy, which has become more masculine in nature. So it's as if there's been an overcorrection, and part of that is societal. Part of that is part of the control mechanism meant to discredit the divine feminine in its role, in its power. And so you have layers of attack that are going on against that to keep the proper representation of the feminine from expressing itself within humanity. And so part of what's going on is the attempt to rebalance those poles into equality. And the system that exists on your planet is working to counteract that effect, because if there's true balance, then the scales are even, and those who seek power have a more difficult time getting around the perceptions which come through the divine feminine, which can see truth, which can see danger, which can see things as they are, not as we want them to be. And within the role of the divine feminine is the protector, the first layer of protection. She sees danger coming towards you, where the divine masculine acts against the danger. She senses it. She sees it coming before he does, and so can plan accordingly to protect life.
I see. Okay. What sort of agendas does the system have to try to block this from happening, this rebalancing? You said there's a counterattack.
It expresses itself as the masculinization of the feminine. That's how you see it express itself. It takes away the softness of the feminine and tries to replace it with a hard edge, which is a corruption, we would say. And let me clarify that hard edge is not about boundaries, because boundaries are necessary for the feminine to exist. They are the safety net of the feminine. They allow for the feminine to give life or to express life throughout creation.
Mm.
And so there needs to be a boundary within that container or that vessel to express itself. But that boundary is not a hard edge. It's just the container. It's the walls. And so the essence, we would say, is the liquid which would go and then within those walls, within the container. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, wow. All right. Um, see, is there anything else that you want to tell me when it comes to your role, or anything that you feel might benefit humanity to understand, not only about you, but about what we're going through right now?
I want humanity to understand that their power is being returned to them right now. And so the destruction of the power system that is crumbling on the planet and is clearly visible is in fact taking place. So there is a systematic dismantling which is being done by the energetic imprint of higher souls who are coming in to that old paradigm and gutting it. And so within part of your own body of work, Sarah, and what is coming through you is the reacclimation of one's personal power. The awareness of human beings as magical and what that actually entails and opens up pathways and gateways of access into the universal flow of energy is significant. part of the attack has always been against one coming back into power of themselves, self-sovereignty. It's not about power over others, but it's about power over one's reality. And so when one taps into their magical nature, the threshold of reality moves in your favor and then goes against the perceived threshold and the perceived structure that's there to control you. The walls become self-evident. They're still there, but one becomes aware of them. And so they can then choose to exist within those walls or to knock those walls down and build better walls for themselves that then reflect their own inner sense of awareness, their own inner sense of growth, their own inner sense of worth, their own inner sense of love within them, just purely through the act of being a living being expressing itself. As human beings were granted the role of ultimate sovereignty within the expression of physical form. Much of what is perceived as extraterrestrials is of a higher consciousness that is not necessarily physically oriented. So the human experience of expression is one of ultimate power of one's own dominion within the lower frequency of form and the denseness of form, which is again being elevated into higher aspects of itself. And so for the human being to then regain the awareness of its own inner capacity as has been expressed through the acts of Christ, through the acts of apostles, through the perception of miracles, through the perception of the bending of reality towards one's will, in what seems like instantaneous arrival of one's intentions. Anyone who is aware right now is actively keyed into the fact that their thoughts are manifesting in physical reality at a much faster pace right now because of what is going on across the universal consciousness of Earth, the elevation of consciousness down several different pathways of which you understand to be the ascension programming. So for humanity is a point of reckoning where one's sense and awareness of their own inner power is becoming self-evident.
It's true, but how can we, as everyone, like most of my clients, they come in and they say, and their higher self says it's stress. Stress is